Welcome back to Press Pass. Now, just before we took a break, Itumbi has given some grave allegations here. I just want to draw attention here to a conversation that took place between the reporter, the Business Daily reporter Stella Murumba, and the PS here in Nairobi at a restaurant. And this is the conversation that the PS actually apologized over because it came out as threatening. Let's listen in.
You cannot stop processes on the system because the CS has been
yesterday was stopped, so what's the big deal?
How did you know that the story was there yesterday?
I mean, but just a recall where? Fully screenshot. So,
Of what?
of the story. Somebody can be reading your messages as we sit here. There's somebody who knows I'm meeting you, by the way, it's not secret.
So in short, you're saying that someone has hacked our system, or it's another individual who has given you information.
If there's a need to hack, it can be hacked.
You have your own team doing that.
Yeah. It's a recall.
Yeah. So the
How
same
much
people
money-
who stopped.
How much money is in your account?
The internal audit alleges that 5 billion shillings could have...
That was part of Andrew Ching's report there, but there was a lot of hue and cry over what the PS told the journalist came off as threatening. You tell me, first of all, just for him to give us the background, this was, hold on, this was a meeting that you had sent Stella to find out a bit more details on. And then she came back, I'm sure, and reported that I was threatened.
The news gathering process is managed by somebody else.
Yes.
Whose title is news editor. So, as the managing editor, I am informed of what is going on.
Yes.
But I don't do the operations. So, I was told after the fact, yeah, because what I did was because I was the one who was asked to give the PS one more day to respond.
Yes.
What I did was basically to ask the news editor to ensure that we contact the PS and make it known that the time that we gave him to respond is almost coming to an end, and we were not going to stop the story once again. So yes, then the news editor takes over the process, and he was aware that Stella was going to meet the PS.
Right.
Yes.
Now, the reason there's some focus on this is then if there's no cause for concern, why threaten someone? And you've said it was, you know, out of order for the PS to threaten the journalist. But this
Mark,
kind
the
of
comments actually wanted.
I'm coming back to you, Dennis. I'm coming back to you, Dennis. I'm coming back to you, Dennis, because I need to clear this.
Yes.
This is a narrative, as you say, that has been misguided because it was something that was started by the government. And then why the attempt to stop the story from going out, and also the day it's been printed, buy out most of the copies.
Let me tell you something.
To do so.
Mark, and I really do want to hear it, Dennis, so I'm hoping you're going to allow him to speak. But a couple of things. First and foremost, my problem with the statements that the PS made is the capacity for them to be misinterpreted, which is exactly what happened. It's the kind of thing if I was advising him, I would first not have ever allowed him to have this conversation at Tronalo. The lady, the journalist, should have gone and met him at his office. So that's now where you start going into gray areas. However, and this is the most important point, it was interesting listening to Raburo here explain the way the PS called the day they were about to run the story. How did they know? Because it's interesting that you are just about to run the story. I'm sure he did not know you were about to run that story that day.
The PS.
Yes. Did he know you were about to run that story that day?
Yes, that's why he was trying.
Do you usually tell people before you run the story that you're running a story about them
I think Raporo explained that the PS called and said he's already aware of the matter.
It's about to run the story.
Give me one more day.
Yes, and he was about to run the story the same day. So anyway, for me, let me tell you what is happening, and it was important for you to play that tape and that interview. That is the genesis of the entire witch hunt that the nation has run. You want to make a point that you cannot talk to a journalist like this. Let me tell you what you want. You want a head. You want Moragori's head on a stick. You want him fired. Because really, this particular story doesn't have... Today now we are talking about 3.2. Even you guys are talking about 3.2. For a week, you've been talking about 5 billion. Where did you get that number from? You get what I'm saying? So you ran with a number that didn't make sense.
Didn't make sense.
That number didn't make sense because where did you get it from?
3.2 billion does make sense.
No. What I'm telling you is now you have a 3.2 billion, which is because when you run a story on headlines for a week, Whether it is true or not, the government is going to have to respond to it.
Okay.
Now, can I speak, Mark?
All right.
Surely.
Now speak.
I mean,
Speak.
Okay. Let me tell you something, Mark. This was professional misconduct by a journalist of NTV in accessing the story. And first of all, let me say this. It is wrong. And in fact, I was among the people who sat in a meeting and encouraged the PS to put up an apology. And by the way, Kenya Union of Journalists has already responded and said it accepts that public officers can actually do apologies. And the media makes mistakes too, and they apologize.
Right.
So apologies are an acceptable means of human interaction. But if we are sincere, and the recording of, and this was actually an interview, can we then play the 2 hours where they met at Kosewe in full, the full recording? That will never happen. I'll tell you why. This journalist wanted an intervention by government because there was a problem, and that is allowed in human relations, of not being able to afford the high-end Nairobi hospital where a parent was admitted. But however, because they were friends, they were actually in the same WhatsApp groups, and we will forward to you the evidence. She formed a WhatsApp group and put the PS and asked for a donation. A donation was made, and we have the M-Pesa evidence. And there was an exchange after that M-Pesa evidence. The content of that M-Pesa evidence, I will not go to it because I want us to go to the issues.
Okay.
But I will say
You bring this up.
No.
In
Let
the
me
line
finish.
of professionalism.
Yeah, because you've brought the issue of the way the PS behaved. When you open the integrity of one, you must also question the integrity of the other.
Right.
It is standard practice, and it is supported by your Nation Media Group Code of Ethics. However, let's leave that because she did not come, and I think that was very strategic of NTV because we would have put her on the spot, and she will confirm that because we have the evidence. If she denies, we'll even get you CCTV footage that she did not even manage to take her lunch. It was packed. And then ask yourself, if it was an interview, who paid for the lunch?
Okay. So
having said that,
so
let's move on.
Was this a setup?
Yeah?
Was this a setup then?
I think the setup was yours. You recorded only a small bit which you used and you never released the entire bit.
I think here we are getting into some funny territory.
Yes.
Because all we have is Itumbi's allegations. Okay. That is it.
But all you had, you guys, media has been running on allegations of one side for a week.
An audit report speaks for itself. An audit report speaks for itself. What we have seen throughout the week, and we are seeing now here, is this attempt to besmirch everybody's name as a way of getting away from the audit report.
Okay, I was actually going to that, Macharia.
Hold on.
The audit report, he has already finished. The audit report.
He was speaking.
Just one thing. I don't know about the truth of whether there was some solicitation. But even if there was, I would want to see how it is related to
this particular
story.
Yes.
Because all of us at some point have weddings, funerals, people in hospitals, and we set up all kinds of forums to ask for
But
donations.
as a journalist handling a story that appears we are going to get responses, journalism demands you declare the interest.
What is the outcome? The story effective?
In the practice of law, the outcome in the practice of law, a judge who is interested in a story recuses themselves. They withdraw from the case so that another judge who has no direct or indirect interest, and your code of ethics says that that's the thing. But let's go to the audit.
One thing maybe I'd like to know is also the timelines around this. Okay. The timelines around this. I may set up a WhatsApp group or whatever group or dish out cards for Harambee. Okay. When was that money sent?
And did the PS contribute?
When was that money sent?
Yeah.
And by who?
Those are things that, as you say, that is
Suppose it was sent after the fact to try and entrap somebody after.
Masharia, who paid for the lunch? That was supposed to be an interview. No, just a minute. It was supposed to be an interview by NTV on the PS. Who paid for the lunch?
Dennis.
I think now you're being petty. Because
No, it's not being petty. I'm raising issues of the code of ethics of the nation.
Mark,
not mine, of the nation.
Could you please shepherd us to the issues? I
Yeah.
think Dennis's strategy here is to muddy the situation so that we don't go into the audit queries.
No.
Now, let me just finish. We have the interim audit report. We have counter-checked with what you have there. Is word for word, page for page. The only difference is that what you have there has a signature. What our source leaked to us did not have a signature, but it has a name of the auditor. Now, the questions that are there are things that are basically audit queries that are legally provided for.
Yes.
For example, I want us to talk about the issue of free maternity money that was diverted from going to the counties to the Ministry of Health at Afi House. What does the law say about this? If you look at the unsigned statement that the ministry has sent this evening, and they did it in the night because they didn't want us, of course, to look at it. It claims that
that's such a mysterious statement. But please go on.
It claims, for example, that
Just tell me the page and I'll be with you.
that the diversion of the funds was legal because they are allowed to do that. Yeah. Listen, this is Public Finance Management Act. Yeah. Section 43 says this. An accounting officer may relocate funds from the authorized use, but may not relocate funds where A, the funds are appropriated for transfer to another government entity or person. Yeah? So you can only relocate what is within your department or agency. Yeah?
Yes.
So when this auditor of theirs, whoever it is saying that they had the authority to transfer those funds, where is the law that supports that claim?
Right.
And there are many things. If you look at what this report says, it says serious things like manipulation of the IFMI system, which this response does not actually address. Listen to this. What it says here, and you have the signed version. Reallocation of 530 million shilling was done from item 311. The numbers are, however, ironically, the same item was added 350 million to enable swim around the IFMIs in order for the system to accept the transaction. Distinction was made on the chart of account by substituting 2 and 4 to read 04042 in one account and 04021 in the other. So you can see the kind of manipulation that is going on. The report that we have, nobody has responded to those kinds of questions. Okay. And therefore, these are the issues I want us to discuss, given the mandate and what we have before us.
First of all, Mark, it is not true these documents are one and the same. One is dated, one of the documents that is given by you is dated on the 28th September 2016. The other one is 20th August 2016. There is a 29th.
There's several. That's the one.
But you've just given me something on 29th August September 2016. So, but basically, let's go to the issues. The interim report that is signed starts with this paragraph. The ongoing, first of all, it's an ongoing process. It also says, raises red flags on possible fraud. Where did NTV and Business Daily get scandal? Yet the interim audit they rely on says possible fraud, not once, 5 times. Then he raises accusations.
So that is not a scandal.
Just a minute.
The phrasing is wrong. It's not a scandal.
Not the phrasing. The interim auditor himself says it is not fraud. It is just possible. I'm just asking questions which may indicate there is fraud and maybe there is no fraud. But Business Daily and NTV ignored that possible fraud and decided to create their own fraud. When you calculate the numbers in this interim audit, they come to 3.2. For a media house that speaks the truth, you cannot come up with a figure of 5 billion from the blues. He has asked a question on the legal bit of allocation, on reallocating money. On the 14th of March 2016, and this is a signed letter by Francis Anyona, the Director of Budget. He says, supplementary estimates in the financial year 2015-2016. Attached here, please find a copy of a letter, quotes the memo number, dated 10th March 2016, blah, 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 then says the National Treasury has granted approval for additional funding to the Ministry of Health for the following activities, and goes on to list how much went to Nanyuki District Hospital, how much went to Aumud County Hospital, how much to Bungoma County Hospital, how much went to nutritional aspects, because the process was followed. But again, Business Daily would rather tell us, and Ochieng be the managing director, tell us it was not approved by law. The law says it was approved. Let's go to the 350
Dennis,
million.
That's not true. Please,
but
let me
respond. Let me respond to what you've just said.
You see, but he has raised 2 issues. Can I just respond to what
No. You cannot go away with that without. What you are quoting there is the supplementary budget, which was 2.4 billion. Of the 5 billion we are talking about. That is what was approved by Treasury. It is not what I'm talking about, the transfer of free maternity money to the Ministry of Health.
And that is what he doesn't understand.
Yeah.
The transfer of the free, first of all, 3.8 billion was transferred to all counties. So everything was paid in that financial year. In fact, I will be tabling for you a letter here showing that governors actually agreed that everything had been paid to them. So 3.8 billion had already been done.
The same governors who have been around in the press saying...
I will give you a letter from Munya. Just relax, Ocheng. Let me answer you. Then, there was, because of allocation, the allocation was there were two choices. Do we return this money as a ministry to Treasury, or do we allocate to more urgent issues? At the point when that was being done, 750,000 people were facing danger because they have HIV. They were facing danger of not having nutritional food. 750,000 Kenyans.
You know what is
so the
happening
ministry
here?
had to make a decision, and there are documents, and I'll give you a document on it that clearly indicates that the ministry allocated money on the basis of law. And that is why I tell him the money for maternity first came from a legal process approved by Treasury. It was not done over a boardroom, as they would like us to believe.
What is happening here is that an audit query was raised. When is that audit query dated? And now we are getting the answers.
Yeah.
So that does not mean there was no audit query. And it does not mean that the audit query was not legitimate. The audit query asked questions.
Yes.
Possible fraud, fine. There I agree with the Tumbi. It did not say scam. It said possible fraud. And maybe also the Business Daily went overboard, Nation and everybody else.
Well, they did.
By saying
They did.
that money was lost or that money was stolen, stating it categorically that money was stolen.
But this were not figures made up by Nation.
Yes.
They were.
But
They were based on the interim.
But that interim report...
Let's be clear. I think journalists have to be very clear about how we report audits, whether it's from Parliament or anywhere else. If it's an audit query, it is simply a letter from the auditor asking the accounting officer to explain this transaction or provide documentation for this transaction, whether it is 3 billion, 5 billion, whatever. It does not mean that money was stolen. The management response is where things will move from there. So to that regard, I agree. But that does still not mean that there was no audit query. The question was that, has that audit query been satisfactorily answered?
Thank you.
No, because the interim audit is still going on. It has not finished. And Dennis Itumbi is not competent enough to be the one answering the audit query.
Let me tell you.
That will come from the Minister of Health.
And he definitely won't be speaking to us.
Not answered.
He can't be speaking to us here.
Two things. First and foremost, you've asked whether a media house can cook a number. This document you guys have adds up to 3.2 billion shillings.
The interim
queries.
Audit report.
But you guys ran with a figure of 5 billion. Where did the other 2 billion come from? That's the first question. Second question. But Dennis and Macharia has now admitted, but Nedis has pointed out that the interim report talked of a possible fraud. The headline that the Business Daily ran with was 5 billion scandal. As far as, if you read that headline, and most Kenyans did not know about the interim report, the background, what had been written, they saw that headline. And as far as they were concerned, they knew 5 billion has been stolen by the Ministry of Health. That was the intention of Business Daily. The intention was not to tell the truth. The intention was to create a scandal. Number three. Was
the intention also to raise questions?
But you see, this is a question. The questions had already been raised.
Yes.
Questions had already been raised by the internal auditor who works for the Treasury.
Within.
Let me listen. Let me finish. This is the point. This is the point we need to be walking through.
Okay.
The questions were raised by an auditor who works for Treasury in the government of Kenya.
Yes.
He raised the questions to somebody who works in the Ministry of Health in the government of Kenya. In the middle of those questions being asked, that letter, the communication, was leaked by someone for their own intentions without following up. Those questions were leaked, taken to the media. The media, instead of reporting that there is an ongoing audit of 3.2 billion shillings, decided to run with a story, 5 billion shillings has been lost in the Ministry of Health. Are we together so far? Now, since then, what the government has been doing is trying to explain that no, 5 billion has not been lost.
It's 3.2.
5 billion has, in fact, no money has been lost as far as we know as of this moment. But 3.2 billion shillings is being queried. Which, let me tell you something about how every institution, including how Nation works. Mark, when you guys go for a trip and you're going to shoot a documentary somewhere in Mara, for example, this thing that I see for traveling around, yes, you're given an imprest, you're given cash, you go and you spend it. Then you come back and you do a report. You give it to your accountant here. That accountant, maybe you are given 1 million shillings, you came back, you have actually broken down 1 million shillings of how you spent it. Then your own internal auditor checks and realizes that I don't have receipts for 500,000 shillings, right? So he writes a letter, your internal auditor writes a letter to your to your department, your production department, and asks them, we gave you guys 1 million shillings to shoot this documentary. I have the report here, but I have queries on 500,000 shillings. Could you please either come and explain or explain to me in written form where these particular issues.
And
would you guys, no, let me finish. Let me finish. No, let me finish.
You don't get
Mark, we haven't even gotten, but you see, this is a problem. We haven't gotten to the point where you're getting answers or not. No, let me finish. What you guys have done, that letter that your internal auditor wrote to your production office asking for 500 million is what you guys have run as a front headline and said 500 million shillings has been stolen.
Okay.
Nobody has gotten a chance to answer.
I think we are not going to have a good debate because,
people
are running away from facts. This report, and I would like to plead with my panelists to read the law of how audits are done.
Yes.
The audit queries are always asked to account holders, and there is a legally provided for period within which the account holders are required to respond. Now listen to what this guy says. Wambugu, this is very much for your sake.
Thank you.
However, the audit is experiencing setback. This they are writing to Mailu.
Yes.
Setback in terms of meek facilitative environment contributing to a slow delivery of audit work, which is necessary in management of decision making.
Please explain that now in English.
Yeah, what that means is that the account holders are stonewalling.
They're not cooperating.
Yeah, so they're not cooperating.
Okay.
Now, look.
So does that give you the right to say 5 billion has been stolen?
No, listen. In many of these, Mr. Itumbi gave us the opening statement.
Yes.
But listen, for example, there are many cases here where he says, look at this. This is 265 million that was sent to Cooperative Bank.
Yes.
What does the auditor say? Payment vouchers were not availed, which means he asked for them and they never gave it to him.
Yes.
Yeah? For audit in order to establish who the bank was instructed to pay.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
It means there is already an interaction.
But
in
now,
many of these, and I can go on. Listen,
but the Ministry of Health has answered that question.
No.
Listen, they have explained where that money went.
Another thing you guys are ignoring when you start around blaming the press is that the minister was, before Business Daily ran with this thing,
we gave him a whole week.
The minister had a whole week. He could have come and explained this.
He was out of the country and Business Daily was informed.
He couldn't respond
In fact, the PS on the response said, you wait for the cabinet secretary is coming tomorrow and he will respond. When he came, the story was already ahead.
It was already
Those are the facts,
Those are not the facts.
Are you disputing he was out of the country?
A response can come.
No, I'm saying the PS said it had been delegated to him to respond.
Anyway, I've been given 50 million. There was a question on 50 million, Mark.